The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the parking lot of a nondescript Motel 6. The air was thick with the quiet hum of crickets and the occasional distant sound of traffic. It seemed like just another ordinary evening, the kind that slips by unnoticed in the grand tapestry of life. It seemed like an ordinary evening in El Cajon, California, but appearances can be deceiving. The calm suburban neighborhood with its neatly trimmed lawns and quiet streets held a dark secret that was about to unravel. Inside the motel, 24-year-old Richard Leva paced nervously, a dark secret hidden just outside his door. His mind raced with thoughts, each one more troubling than the last. He knew that what lay in the trunk of his mother's car could change everything. In the trunk of his mother's Hyundai Sonata, 51-year-old Jameson Webster lay lifeless. The once vibrant woman, full of life and love, now reduced to a tragic figure hidden away in the darkness of a car trunk. Her visit to her son had taken a tragic, unthinkable turn. What was meant to be a simple visit had spiraled into a nightmare, one that no mother or son should ever have to endure. Jameson's other son, worried when his mother didn't return home, used a phone tracking app to locate her car at the motel. His heart pounded as he followed the blinking dot on his screen, each step bringing him closer to a truth he wasn't prepared to face. His sense of dread grew with every step towards the Hyundai. The night air felt colder, the shadows longer, as he approached the car that held the answers to his growing fears. What he found would shatter his world. The sight that greeted him as he opened the trunk was something out of a nightmare, a scene that would be etched into his memory forever. His mother's body, concealed in the trunk, confirmed his worst fears. Jameson was gone. The reality of her death hit him like a tidal wave, overwhelming and inescapable. The motel, a place of transient anonymity, became a scene of unimaginable grief. The flickering motel sign, once a beacon for weary travelers, now stood as a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. The discovery of Jameson's body sent shockwaves through the community, leaving family and friends grappling with the sudden and violent loss. The close-knit community, where everyone knew each other, was left in a state of collective mourning. News of the tragedy spread quickly, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. The story dominated headlines, a stark contrast to the peaceful facade of the suburban neighborhood. It was a grim reminder that sometimes the most horrifying secrets are hidden in plain sight. Overwhelmed by grief and rage, Jameson's son confronted Richard. The tension between them had been simmering for years, but the recent tragedy had brought everything to a boiling point. A heated argument erupted, fueled by anguish and accusations. Words that had been left unsaid for too long were now being hurled with venom. The confrontation escalated, the pain of their mother's death a raw wound between them. Each brother blamed the other for their misfortunes, their voices rising with every passing second. Fists flew, a desperate and futile release of raw emotion. Richard, overwhelmed, bolted. He couldn't handle the weight of the accusations and the grief that was tearing him apart. He jumped into the Hyundai, his mother's lifeless body still in the trunk, and sped away. The night swallowed him as he drove aimlessly, trying to escape the reality of what had just happened. The motel parking lot, now a crime scene, was swarming with police. The flashing lights and the sound of sirens filled the air, creating a chaotic scene. They had been called for the disturbance, but soon found themselves facing something far more sinister. The discovery of the body turned the situation from a simple altercation to a full-blown investigation. A homicide investigation was launched, the altercation between the brothers adding another layer of complexity to the already tangled case. Detectives worked tirelessly, piecing together the events that led to this tragic outcome. The tragedy had spiraled, leaving one brother grappling with his grief and the other on the run from the law. The weight of their actions hung heavily over them, changing their lives forever. Their bond, already strained, was irrevocably broken. The pursuit was on. The police were determined to bring Richard in, while Jameson's son was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered family. Richard, desperate and disoriented, sped through the streets of El Cajon. The night was a blur of neon lights and dark shadows, a chaotic backdrop to his frantic escape. The Hyundai, now a symbol of his horrifying crime, became his vessel for escape. Every rev of the engine echoed his desperation, a desperate bid to outrun the consequences of his actions. Behind him, the wail of approaching sirens signaled the relentless pursuit of justice. The police were closing in, their determination unwavering. El Cajon police officers, their faces grim, were determined to apprehend the fleeing suspect. They knew the stakes were high, and failure was not an option. The chase, a dangerous dance of speed and adrenaline, wove through city streets. Richard's heart pounded in his chest as he navigated the labyrinth of roads, each turn a gamble. Richard, his mind racing, pushed the Hyundai to its limits. The speedometer climbed higher, the car's engine roared louder, but escape seemed increasingly impossible. But the law was closing in. The gap between him and the pursuing officers was shrinking with every passing second. With a deafening crunch of metal, the chase came to an abrupt end. The Hyundai collided with another vehicle, the impact jarring and final. Richard's escape had been cut short by a carefully executed pit maneuver. He was trapped, the realization dawning on him like a cold, hard truth. Surrounded by police cars, their lights painting the scene in an eerie glow, Richard was ordered out of the vehicle. The air was thick with tension, every second stretching into eternity. He emerged, his eyes wild with fear and desperation. His mind raced for a plan, but there was no escape. Resisting arrest, he became a danger to himself and the officers. His frantic movements were a final, futile act of defiance. A taser deployed with a sharp crack brought him down. The electric shock coursed through his body, ending the struggle in an instant. The pursuit was over, but the real drama was just beginning. Richard's capture marked the end of the chase, but the start of a new chapter in his life, one filled with legal battles and the haunting consequences of his actions. The charges against Richard landed with the weight of a judge's gavel homicide assault with a deadly weapon evading law enforcement. The evidence, stacking up against him, painted a grim picture. The prosecution, their case bolstered by witness accounts and physical evidence, was determined to seek justice for Jameson. The courtroom, usually a place of sterile formality, buzzed with tension. Richard, his face pale and drawn, sat silently as the charges against him were read. His fate, hanging in the balance, would be decided by a jury of his peers. The trial, a long and arduous process, promised to be a painful examination of a family shattered by violence. The grainy footage, captured by the motel's security cameras, sent chills down the spines of everyone in the courtroom. It showed Richard, his face shrouded in darkness, dragging his mother's lifeless body from the motel room. Each step, captured in chilling detail, was a testament to the brutality of the crime. Yasmin Bigdili, the prosecuting attorney, presented the footage as a key piece of evidence. The images, silent yet powerful, spoke volumes about the events that had transpired that fateful night. Richard's defense team, their faces etched with concern, knew they had a difficult task ahead of them. The footage, difficult to refute, cast a long shadow over their client's case. It was a bright Monday morning in Forest Hill, Texas. The sun was shining, birds were singing, the air was crisp, filled with the promise of a new day. The neighborhood was slowly waking up with people stepping out for their morning jogs, kids getting ready for school, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. At Slappy's Express Car Wash, the day was just getting started. The staff was already busy preparing for the influx of customers. The sound of water spraying and vacuums humming filled the air, a symphony of cleanliness. Cars lined up, waiting their turn for a wash. Each vehicle a story of its own, from the family minivan to the sleek sports car. People sat inside, some chatting on their phones, others lost in thought, all waiting for their turn to shine. Among them was a young father, Lil Ronnie Smith, with his precious 5-year-old daughter. They were a picture of joy, the little girl holding her father's hand, her eyes wide with excitement. They were there to get his car cleaned. It was a simple task, a routine part of their day. But for Ronnie, it was also a chance to spend quality time with his daughter, to teach her the little things in life. It was a normal day, an ordinary errand. People went about their business, unaware of the storm that was brewing. The car wash was a place of routine, a place where people came and went without a second thought. No one could have predicted the horror that was about to unfold. Ronnie was a rising star in the Texas rap scene. His music was gaining traction, his name becoming known. He was known for his unique style and captivating lyrics. His performances were electric, drawing crowds from all over. He had a way with words, a talent for turning his experiences into powerful songs. He was known for his unique style and captivating lyrics. His music was a reflection of his life. Each song told a story, each lyric a piece of his soul. His music was a reflection of his life. His struggles, his triumphs, his dreams. He poured his heart into his work, and it resonated with his fans. his struggles, his triumphs, his dreams. His daughter was the apple of his eye. She was his inspiration, his reason for pushing forward. His daughter was the apple of his eye. She was full of life, with a smile that could light up a room. Her laughter was infectious, her energy boundless. She was full of life, with a smile that could light up a room. They were inseparable, a father and daughter who shared a special bond. They did everything together, from grocery shopping to park visits. They were inseparable, a father and daughter who shared a special bond. The car wash was a place of routine, a place where people came and went without a second thought. The car wash was a place of routine, a place where people came and went without a second thought. But on this day, the ordinary became extraordinary. But on this day, the ordinary became extraordinary. The mundane turned into a nightmare. The peaceful atmosphere was shattered in an instant. The mundane turned into a nightmare. As Ronnie and his daughter waited their turn, the unthinkable happened, a sudden violent event that no one saw coming. As Ronnie and his daughter waited their turn, the unthinkable happened. The serene morning was replaced with chaos as emergency vehicles rushed to the scene. The day that started with so much promise ended in a way no one could have imagined. Gunshots. Loud, piercing gunshots. They ripped through the air, shattering the peace and quiet of the morning. Chaos erupted as people screamed and ran for cover. The car wash, once a place of normalcy, transformed into a scene of terror. Two men, their faces concealed by masks, emerged from a white Kia. They were armed and dangerous, their intentions unclear. They opened fire, their bullets aimed at Ronnie's car. The car, once a symbol of pride, became a shield against the onslaught. Witnesses watched in horror, their minds struggling to comprehend the unfolding tragedy. The air filled with the smell of gunpowder, a grim reminder of the violence that had invaded their community. The car wash, now a crime scene, was eerily silent, the joyous sounds of the morning replaced by the chilling echoes of gunshots. The gunmen, their mission accomplished, jumped back into the white Kia. They sped off, leaving behind a trail of devastation. The screeching of tires pierced the air as they disappeared into the morning traffic. Their escape was swift and calculated, a testament to their cold-bloodedness. As sirens wailed in the distance, the community reeled in shock and disbelief. The car wash, now cordoned off with yellow tape, stood as a grim reminder of the violence that had visited their peaceful town. The suspects, still at large, became the subject of a massive manhunt. The police arrived quickly, their faces grim as they surveyed the scene. Shell casings littered the ground, grim evidence of the bullets that had been fired. A sense of urgency filled the air as investigators began their work, determined to bring the perpetrators to justice. The news of the shooting spread like wildfire through the town of Forest Hill. It was a quiet, close-knit community where everyone knew each other, and such an event was unimaginable. The shockwaves were felt in every corner, from the local diner to the school playground. People were glued to their televisions and phones, trying to make sense of the tragedy that had unfolded at Slappy's car wash. Residents were in shock, struggling to come to terms with the senseless violence that had taken place in their midst. Conversations were hushed, and the usual laughter and chatter were replaced with somber tones and tearful eyes. The community was grappling with a new reality, one where safety and peace had been shattered. The car wash, a place that held ordinary memories for many, was now forever etched in their minds as a place of tragedy. It was a spot where people would go to clean their cars, chat with neighbors, and enjoy a sunny afternoon. Now it stood as a grim reminder of the fragility of life and the unexpected turns it can take. A sense of fear and unease settled over the community. Parents were now more cautious, and children who once played freely were kept closer to home. The carefree days seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a pervasive sense of vulnerability. Parents hugged their children a little tighter, grateful for their safety, yet fearful of the unknown. The incident had brought home the harsh reality that no place was truly safe, and the need to protect their loved ones was more urgent than ever. The streets, usually bustling with activity, were eerily quiet. Shops that would normally be filled with customers were closed, and the usual hum of daily life was replaced by an unsettling silence. It was as if the town itself was mourning. The town felt as if it was holding its breath, united in grief and disbelief. Candlelight vigils were held, and people came together to support one another, sharing stories and memories of happier times. The sense of community was strong, but so was the collective sorrow. This wasn't the Forest Hill they knew. The town that had always been a safe haven now felt foreign and unrecognizable. The familiar sights and sounds were overshadowed by the recent events, casting a long shadow over the community. This wasn't the community they had built together. The bonds that had been formed over years of shared experiences were now being tested in ways they had never imagined. Yet, in the face of adversity, the spirit of Forest Hill remained unbroken. The shooting at Slappy's car wash was a stark reminder of the violence that plagued their nation, a violence that had now reached their doorstep. It was a wake-up call, a moment that would forever change the fabric of their community. But even in the darkest times there was a glimmer of hope, a belief that together, they could heal and rebuild. The shooting left Ronnie's family devastated. His aunt, Stella Houston, spoke to reporters, her voice filled with grief and anger. "He was a good kid," she said, her voice breaking. "He didn't deserve this. And his little girl, she was his whole world." Stella described Ronnie as a loving father who was dedicated to providing for his daughter. "He was always there for her," she said. "He would do anything for that little girl." The family was struggling to come to terms with their loss, their pain palpable. The senselessness of the crime only added to their anguish. They were surrounded by love and support from their community, but the pain of their loss was unbearable.